Yeah. I mean, what a powerful story that just has so many lessons, not only about just servant leadership, but also culture, right? Like
Yeah.
people want to leave, and when we're going to dive into here culture and Chipotle culture, but if you don't have a good culture, things start to fall apart. And it looks like you really embodied and built a culture. But I think the important thing is it didn't look like you were just searching for that title. Like you were doing all the work, right? Like you
Yeah.
didn't search for that leadership title.
No, I didn't care. I mean, I just cared that, hey, wait a minute. I'm getting super, super busy. I'm trying to do it all myself. I'm really about me. And then let me instead try to make other people good and help them be great. And it paid off beautifully in every single way, right? Because I was having more fun. I didn't have to work as hard. I made a lot more money. I mean, way more, because all of a sudden I could serve way more clients. So our firm grew like crazy. We ended up adding lawyer after lawyer after lawyer, and the firm grew. And Steve Ells, who was the founder and at that time CEO of Chipotle, noticed, because he, asked me to do some work for Chipotle, and then he came into the law firm to meet with me, and he looked around. And what did he see? Tons of happy people working really, really hard, but stoked, that seemed energized, that seemed enthusiastic. And he said, wait a minute, how'd you build this culture? This is great. Like, I want this at Chipotle. Could you build this at Chipotle? And I said, well, probably not. I'm a lawyer, And I said, probably not, for years. And he kept asking me, hey, would you come to Chipotle? Would you come to Chipotle? And finally, he said something that really challenged me and sort of woke me up. I said to him, hey, I'd love to come to Chipotle, but I'm a lawyer, I'm a lawyer. And he said, Monty, you're not a lawyer. A lawyer is what you're doing, but a leader is who you are. And if you come to Chipotle, imagine how many more people you could impact with your leadership. Imagine how much more good you could do for people, when you come to a company that's going to have thousands of employees instead of dozens. And I said, I got to think, maybe. And so ultimately I just said, okay, I'll give it a try. And I jumped over to Chipotle. And it was very difficult because I loved my law firm, loved all my associates, loved what we were doing together, loved my clients. But I took a risk. I went over to Chipotle for a big pay cut, by the way. I mean, I went to Chipotle. I mean, just to give it raw numbers, I was making over $1 million a year as an attorney at this point. And I went over to Chipotle to make less than a third of that, for my initial salary. Now, I got a lot of stock options and stuff, which ended up being a home run because we did well. But it was a risk at first. This was not obvious. Okay. There were a lot of people telling me not to do it, including my wife at the time. She was like, stay, this is great. You don't need to go over there. So I took some risk, but it felt like the right thing to do because of what Steve said. Hey, this is a chance to help a lot more people, not just our thousands of employees, which became tens of thousands, which became almost 100,000 employees, but also millions of customers who could be affected, and thousands of farmers who raise the food for us, and suppliers and so forth. So a really big, the ability to affect a huge group of people through this one position.
What a powerful story. So you take literally like a huge pay cut. You go from making $1 million a year to taking a bet on a company. I mean, everyone who says the word Chipotle now, it's in our vocabulary, knows how large Chipotle is, but people need to remember, when you joined Chipotle, was it effectively in a way like a startup still? It was a small stage company.
Yeah, it was still relatively small. I mean, Chipotle, when I started being general counsel for Chipotle and doing lease work and everything, which is how I started at the law firm. So I started doing work for Chipotle at the law firm, and I got more and more and more involved. At that point, Chipotle had 8 restaurants. By the time I actually went on to become, the president and COO of Chipotle, Chipotle had a few hundred restaurants. So it had a good head of steam, and the restaurants were, we were opening restaurants pretty quickly, and there was a lot of excitement about the brand. So it had a head start for sure, but I've been involved since very early time in terms of my legal work for the company and getting to know a lot of the people at the corporate office. So by the time I actually took the job, it was a very warm landing because I already knew almost everyone at the corporate office and really knew what was going on. I'd already become part of the leadership team, went to all the board meetings, and so there's about a 4 or 5 year window between when Steve said, gee, maybe you should come run Chipotle, and when I said yes. And during that 4 or 5 years, I became more and more involved. And essentially, you might say that Steve was grooming me for the role and to come in, I think, to come in at a very high level in the company.
Yeah.